Eleanor Holmes Norton, a passionate advocate for years for leveling the playing field for minorities. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and thank you for the new book. It's really interesting. What is the mission of your book? Let's just start with that right now. What are you hoping to accomplish by getting this out there?
Well, a couple things. When people think about African Americans in the economy, they think of us at the economic periphery. What I want to argue is from the beginning of the time of this country, we've really been quite central. We have been economic actors. If economics is a story of who gets what, when, where, and why, we've often had our hand on the knife to slice the pie, beginning with those enslaved people who purchased themselves. I mean, that was an economic act, and the whole self-emancipation story is one that's not well known, Wendy. No one really teaches black economic history, but as an economist, I come across a fact here, a fact there, and I started saving them up and said, this is worth sharing. But then in these economic times, this becomes also inspirational, because I see lots of young people and others say, oh, gee, the playing field isn't level. But you can't win if you don't play. And so I want to encourage young folks to be participants in our economy, entrepreneurs, even in these horrible times, and I don't envy my sister here at all. But, you know, Congress is creating opportunities for some entrepreneurs. There are people who say that if we can't come to a budget conclusion and there is a cut in our bond rating, there are going to be some stock that are going to be great bargains. And so when you look at, so I don't wish that. I don't wish that. Right. But I do think that always everyone, but especially people of African descent, have to be aware of the opportunities that an oscillating economy provides.
Right, which is inspirational in this book, and yet everyone at this point in this economy, a lot of people are struggling. So, Delegate Norton, is it even more impossible, I mean, to be inspired today at this point where we are?
That's a time when you particularly need to be inspired, because otherwise you'll get depressed. When Dr. Malveaux, my good friend Julianne Malveaux, talks about what is clearly the case, that there will be opportunities in the bond market, I can tell you it'll be for the hedge fund people. It won't be for these African Americans who are so far behind. There is far more to lose than there is to gain from a default or even getting close to a default. As we speak, that matter has not been fully taken care of in the Congress, but let's look at where the American people are. It's very interesting. We speak about African Americans. You might expect African Americans to say we ought to be talking about jobs and unemployment. But amidst all the din on the deficit, the polls are still showing 3-to-1 that Americans put jobs over deficit as their primary concern. And if you look at unemployment, that's where African Americans have their most concern. The polls show, these are for everybody, 3-to-1 also deal with unemployment over deficit. Yet there has been no jobs bill filed by the new Republican majority in the House. They have spent all their time on one piece of cut legislation after another. They've tried to cut the new health care bill. So they passed several cuts in it, knowing that it would not get through the House. They passed bills to cut the deficit so that we can do the deficit reduction, knowing that they won't get through the Senate. And that's the kind of games we've been playing, and they're very dangerous games at this time.
And you know, what's very interesting is all of these cuts have an impact on the job market. Because when you cut some of these programs that were job generation programs, when you cut some of the subsidies that were going to states, you're really cutting jobs. So now, the average unemployed person has been unemployed for 40 weeks. That's 10 months. The average unemployed person. A third of the people who are unemployed have been unemployed for more than a year. So when you look at that data and you look at these times, it's important for folks to pull back, you know, and look at some of the examples of poor mothers and fathers who made a way out of no way. But, you know, as Congresswoman Norton says, this is a very dire situation. Even if this budget issue is resolved, still have these 15 million Americans who do not have work officially. And then you have the unofficial unemployed. Among African Americans, 1 in 3.
Right. For example, we're going to have a job fair. I believe it's August the 7th.
August 9th.
August 9th. Now, we usually have lots of people come to these job fairs. Can you imagine what kind of a crowd we're going to have at our job fair on August 9th coming up?
You could be overwhelmed.
And we probably will be. Now, the interesting thing is the mismatch between the kinds of jobs that are available. We're going to have more than 100 employers there.
Right.
And and people, for example, in my own district, in the District of Columbia, we have a very large segment in the District of Columbia for whom the new community college is absolutely and essentially all that is important to give them the skills to operate in an upscale economy, which is what you have in this region.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And I'm curious, you know, everyone is looking, is drowning. Are there even lifeboats out there? We'll look at that when we come back after this brief break.